think that people have a propensity to kind of have an aversion towards what's different from them. I've been called a cracker before. I've been told I was going...
No! No! That was in context. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Twitch. Please don't ban me. What the fuck? Are you serious? Are you serious, dude? Oh, no. Nor. I'm so sorry to all my Caucasian fans. I'm so sorry that she just dropped the C with the hard R like that. Like, and you guys had to hear that. I'm sorry to Twitch for the traumatic experience that I put y'all through. I'm sorry to Twitch for allowing this to happen. Fuck, man, that shit sucks. I'm sorry.
To get beaten up because I was white. I would
What?
argue that on a systemic level, white people don't experience racism the same way a lot of other races experience racism. But I would say on an individual level, any group is capable of being racist towards another group as well.
So the argument against this position frequently is that racism is a system, not a sentiment in the United States. And I agree with that really strongly, but at the same time,
yes, without systemic racism, you know what like individualized racism is? Without systemic racism and historical precedent, bad words. Hurtful and bad and meanie bobini words, okay? That's the entire point. That's the entire circumstance, okay? That's what the problem is. If black people had material equality in this country, if there were amends that were made for chattel slavery, which is like, you know, ethically speaking, morally speaking, I don't even know if you could ever even account for it, right? Such a historical wrong, right? If you could do such a thing in a hypothetical scenario, the N-word would not be as powerful as it is, okay? That's the point. Like, the problem is systemic problems against black people still exist. It is white supremacy is baked into all of our institutions. That's the main issue. Okay? Individual prejudice versus systemic racism have such a huge divide between them. Yes. I remember seeing a TikTok explaining words with ism at the end are systems put in place: capitalism, socialism, sexism, racism. What?
I'm Jewish, and
what about white minorities? Not a hot take, just a question. I don't even like. Do you mean like a white person in a different country or something there where white people are not the majority? Is that what you're saying? Like a white tourist in China? Like, what do you mean? Or do you mean white minorities like in South Africa? Because we know how they got there and we know what they did. Okay? Do you understand? Because like if you're talking about South Africa, it's the same as the white supremacist shit that you saw in America.
racially white and have definitely experienced racism, discrimination. The paradox is that most of that racism is coming from white people or European
Oh my
society.
God, bro. Oh my God, bro. Fucking build a bridge and get over it, brother. Holy shit. It's just like, bro is desperate. Desperate for some fucking oppression seeking. My Lord. My Lord. Holy fuck. Like, unless he's talking about oppression that he's faced in the form of anti-Semitism as a Jew, okay? I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. And in that circumstance, like, if it is oppression he's faced as someone who is Jewish, then he didn't actually face that oppression on the basis of being white. He faced it on the basis of being not white, as a matter of fact. You know what I mean? Like, when Jewish people were facing oppression, they weren't facing oppression as white people. They were the outside group, because whiteness as a concept, as I have described many times over, is a social construct developed with the specific and express purpose of otherizing black people and non-white people in the outgroup and justifying the untold amounts of oppression that you are forcing these outgroups into by denying their personhood, by denying their personality, by denying their humanity. That's it. Okay? So in that circumstance, he's not like experiencing anti-white racism for other white people. He's not experiencing anti-white racism. He's just experiencing anti-Semitism.
White nationalism, etc., that's directed at Jews. So I'm Dane and I'm Jewish. I'm proud of being Jewish and being connected to an ancient religion and culture, but I'm not proud to be white, I would say. White privilege, I think, is...
Oh, never mind.
an
I
aspect of
misunderstood,
American
I think.
society. I think it exists. When I go to a job interview, I don't have to worry about my hairstyle or the way I normally speak or my name. And that's something perhaps a black person would have to worry about.
Can they disagree a step forward?
If you want to know more about this, by the way, I made a video on my YouTube page called "White People Do Not Exist." Replacement without real. I think it was basically like 15 minutes of just like going through this pretty adequately. This is something that you guys can better inform yourselves on. Here you go. I'll blast it in the chat. A lot of people liked it. A lot of people said that this was like the type of video I should be doing more of, but.
So I just want to say that I want to validate everyone's individual experiences. I do also believe that white people experience bias, prejudice, but the reason I did not step forward is because by definition, racism is tied to power and economics. You talked about systemic discrimination. I don't feel white people experience racism by definition and by actual concept.
What is the definition of racism and who wrote that definition?
In the late 1500s, early 1600s, there was slavery. They started bringing over slaves, but there was really no concept of classifying people in terms of race. It's just we're bringing these people over and they're slaves. What ended up happening is some of the slave owners who were white started mixing with some of the slaves. And now here you have these black people.
Why should she know that much? Man, come on, guys. Like, what do you mean? Don't do this fucking whole, like, emotional labor shit. She's on a fucking Jubilee video. I'm glad that she's there and taking on the fucking emotional labor of, like, describing the historical context behind the one-drop rule and racial subjugation. You know what I mean? This is a profoundly important educational opportunity, and she's doing the appropriate, adequate thing.
Slave owners who were white started mixing with some of the slaves. And now here you have these black people that look like the people that are owning things. So they're like, whoa, 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 whoa. The theory of race was formed to classify a group of people who would be lesser than and have less economic power. And this would be imposed against them for hundreds of years. So that has not been the white experience in this country, but it does not invalidate the things that white people experience. It's just not racism by definition. Is it prejudice? Is it bias? Is it wrong? Yes.
Mine is simple. If one person treats...
So if racism is based on power and economics, couldn't that still be used against a white person within certain individual spaces? Yes, you would have to try really hard, though. And in the real world, it does not really exist in the same way that, like, every single time you look for a reason for a white person to be able to say the N-word, you're always like, well, what if I'm reading Tom Sawyer or some shit? You're literally looking. You're seeking out the oppression. That oppression is not actually baked into the way that you exist. It's so permanent, and it's such a big part of our existence. That kind of like anti-black racism, white supremacy in general, is like most people don't even recognize it when they have been socially conditioned into feeling that way. You have to try really hard to seek out like anti-white oppression and develop or craft a hypothetical scenario in which it exists. Okay? That's the main difference. It's not baked into our laws. It is not a part of our everyday existence. That's the main difference. If you're looking it out, if you're seeking it out, and if you're looking for it, and aggressively looking for it and even failing to find it in most circumstances. So you make up hypotheticals in which it can potentially exist. And it's not the same as systemic racism that has been a foundational principle of American societal development alongside genocide of the indigenous population.
Treats another person differently because of the color of their skin. To me, that's racism. I will tell you that I was stopped by the police plenty of times when I was a young man. And I will also tell you that I then decided to spend 35 years.
Sean the Black says, white people don't even notice the systems that benefit them, which is why they have a hard time reconciling their individual experiences with the systems in place. Exactly. White privilege is just simply... white privilege is just simply the lack of additional hurdles placed upon non-white people. That's it. Also, he's been stopped by cops as a policeman. Oh boy, this guy's gonna have some wonderful fucking footnotes.
That's racism. I will tell you that I was stopped by the police plenty of times when I was a young man. And I will also tell you that I then decided to spend 35 years as a policeman. I'll tell you that I stopped lots of kids coming home from school. Depending on who it was that I stopped, the first thing out of their mouth would be, "You only stopped me because I'm black." And I would say,
yes, that is why I did it. You'd be like, and I would say, racist shit.
"You're driving a sports car with a back window that's this big. I can't see who's driving." And
Oh my God, bro. Oh my God. Oh yeah, you're driving a fancy car, boy. That's why I stopped you. Oh no, I can't see you in the car. I just stopped you because you're going 95 and a 55. Okay, dude.
Stopped you because you're doing 95 and a 55. I
Yeah.
had no idea who I was pulling over until I stopped you. Now, if I treat you differently because you're black, then I'm a racist. But if I write you the same ticket that I was going to write you before I knew who was behind the wheel, I'm not.
Oh my God. Jimmy's awesome. Thank God for Jimmy, dude. Never heard these takes before. These are new ones, okay? Man, in this imaginary scenario he made up in his head, he seems really cool. No, he doesn't. Even in the imaginary scenario that he made up in his head, he tried to like make himself look good by being like, well, you were going 95 on a 55. And I'd be racist. I'd be racist if I didn't write you a ticket because I would be treating you differently than I normally would. It's bullshit. You can tell she knows what's going on right there. So does he.
So I'm glad you used that example, and I want to commend you for your service for our country. But
Oh God, don't do that.
but I do want to say, because I've actually taught classes for the LAPD and for their cadets about these
What the
issues.
fuck?
So what I can say, which is a statistic, and which is also a fact, is that 60% of our prison population is African American.
Different issue.
Yes, but let me finish, please. Is African American males, right? When you go into a system and you are kept in that system and you're cycled through probation and there is a systematic sequence of
course the cop says, by the way, sorry to pause her, but of course the cop literally says that the disproportionate incarceration rate of black people in the criminal justice system is completely different than a cop stopping a black person. Not related at all. It's like, what do you mean it's not related? It is literally the same issue.
oppression. That's not happening to white males. So it's bigger than just the stop itself. It's the system. My name is Sierra. I'm an actor, a speaker, and a human rights activist. I'm very proud to be African.
Here's the thing, okay? If you look at the incarceration rate of, or the disproportionate incarceration rate of African Americans in comparison to any other race in the United States of America, and you say, oh, well, that's not white supremacy, that's something else, it has to be one of two factors, okay? When you look at the disproportionate incarcerated population of black people in this country, it has to be either one of two factors. It can be external qualities or internal qualities. And if you think these are intrinsic factors, right, then you're just racist. You're just saying it's their genes, it's their genetic predisposition to doing violent crime or whatever the fuck. But if you believe that it's external factors, then you understand that this is a systemic issue. And therefore, you believe in systemic discrimination of black people, historically and in contemporary society. That's it. Either you believe it's the material conditions or you believe there is an intrinsic factor at play there. There's no other way out of this argument. Okay? And they have a different culture is a cop-out. That's what pussies say, okay? That is a way to try to traffic racist ideas or white supremacist ideas under the guise of a different name, okay? Why? Rap music is the most popular form of culture, okay? It's the most popular commodified form of art that it has international audiences. So why is it only impacting black people differently than it impacts white people? Do you understand? The idea that it's like, oh, it's their culture is just a different way or a cowardly way of saying, no, it's it's racism, but with the extra steps. Nature or nurture destroyed by Ben Shapiro saying the word culture. It's obviously systemic racism at play. Yeah, exactly. Culture is derived from either internal or external factors as well. Culture doesn't exist in a vacuum. 100%. Restating my question because it didn't pop up when you click. We have the words for interpersonal versus systemic racism. It sounds like some people didn't want to keep addressing the black people can be the real racist. Bull. So they just said it's only racism with systemic oppression. Can you explain why we should do this with the new definition? Because it isn't common definition, nor does it pop up with Google. We'll ask twice, no spam. I don't understand what you mean by that. Oh, the whole like racism has to happen at the systemic level, and the individualized form of racism is something different than systemic racism. Is that what you're saying? Like, and there's no new definition for it? I don't know. I don't know how to fucking change the definition if that's what you're asking. It's actually really sad because they've gotten a lot of black people, including one of my closest child friends, to believe that black people are intrinsically prone to failure and criminality. This is also why the Democratic crime bills had hella black support in the 90s. Yes, white supremacy is so incredibly powerful that black people that are born and raised in the United States of America, even in contemporary American society, are still going to still going to public schools that have a curriculum that is outdated, antiquated, and also systematically neutered, that end up learning things from a otherwise white supremacist perspective. Okay? That's where this comes from. That's why you see even black people have these kinds of opinions about black people from time to time. There is no other product. If like I said, white supremacy is so permanent and such a foundational part of American existence, or just existence in the Western capitalist universe, then of course black people themselves are also going to that are educated in this environment are also going to share similar values. You get it? Makes black people feel lesser while creating a white population ignorant and uncaring to these issues. Yep. Exactly.
American, to be black. The challenges that come with being black, also being a black woman, are very real. I'm at a place in my life where I'm acknowledging these things are real. Discrimination is real. The systematic oppression of black people is very real. But I will succeed in spite of that.
The police force is foundationally racist.
There's just facts. There's no middle ground in this. This is like historically true. There is no middle ground. I love when Jubilee will come in and just be like a fundamental truth. Like it's like asking if there's a middle ground between, like, did the founders have slaves? You know what I mean? Like, there is no argument to be made there. It's just historical truths versus what your own personal perspective is on the matter. I love the white people looking over at the black people in this.
I want to start off by saying I don't think that every cop out there today is racist.
Why not? Just say it.
I think there
Boo. Say it.
are a lot of them who are really doing good work. What I know
Boo.
from the establishment of the policing in the United States, that is directly from the slave catchers who were hired to catch runaway slaves and bring them back home.
Yeah, I agree that all cops aren't racist. I had plenty of interactions with police that we're fine, but
You know we aren't taught that the founders own slaves, right? Shut the fuck up. Are you serious? No fucking shot, dude. What? No, they definitely did. You just didn't understand it. What? In the American school system, you are telling me right now, because I didn't go to school here, in the American education system, you do not learn that the founding fathers, pretty much all of them, with a couple exceptions, had slaves? No shot. Okay, that's like, bro, that literally, what you are just describing is akin to like whitewashing the crimes of Nazi Germany. Holy fuck. Did a poll? Wait, there's a poll in the chat. Stop it, dude. Did you learn that the founding fathers had slaves? Oh my God, 70% are saying no. What the fuck? They don't really teach it, but it's obvious that you talk about George Washington's runaways, if I remember. The only founder I remember being highlighted as a slaver when I was taught history in school was Jefferson. Briefly mentioned, but not intentionally taught. Dude, 68% of chat currently is firmly stating that no, they did not learn that the founding fathers had slaves in school. That's because 70% of your followers are idiots? Yeah, probably, dude. It must be that. I don't know if this is like a instance where chat just simply didn't pay attention in class, or just straight up this is just systemic failure of epic proportions, dude. Look at this. 67%, 3,000 votes say, no, they did not learn that the founding fathers had slaves. What is happening right now? Okay, let's continue.
you know, I was told by a former police officer who
Jefferson's a big one because they said he felt bad about and was nice to them. What? He was nice to them? What does he mean? Nice to his slaves? What? What? Like what? Like nice in the form of like raping them? What do you mean he was nice to them? What the fuck are they? First of all, you can't be fucking nice to someone you have enslaved. And also on top of that, Thomas Jefferson was like additionally fucking gross too. Dude, he was so nice. He actually called them by their real names. What? That's correct. They didn't highlight that he was a slaver or raped them in my mid MO high school since he's important to Missouri. Bro, that's crazy. Study.com, learn. U.S. founding fathers and slavery. Bro, read the sentence. Did the founding fathers own slaves? The founding fathers said that slavery, mixed history. Founding fathers used the term to describe the several dozen men who helped frame the U.S. Constitution. Some of the founding fathers did own slaves, but slavery was a divisive issue among them. Yeah. So divisive. That's such incredible liberal framing, by the way, to be like, you know, they had slaves, but they were arguing about it. Doesn't that make it worse? because that implies that there were people that understood that it was like first of all, this framing immediately dehumanizes black people, right? Because you want to know who didn't like the fact that there were slaves? The slaves. The black people that were enslaved, right? So you're just automatically just removing them from the conversation when you have this argument, when you make this argument. But also, it's actually worse than you think, because ultimately that means that there were people at the time that totally understood that this was really fucked up and morally abhorrent behavior. And the founders were like, nah, I still ride for that, actually. This is why I love using the George Washington example. For those of you who don't know, at the time, there were laws to forcibly free enslaved people, okay? For those of you who do not know, George Washington cycled his slaves across state boundaries every 6 months in an effort to ensure, okay, in an effort to ensure that they were not freed, implying that he personally understood that, like, at the time there was literally a fucking law around it, and that people totally saw the moral morally unjustifiable act of enslaving a human being. Like, he literally did human trafficking. Hold on. Here it is. SmithsonianMagazine.com. George Washington used legal loopholes to avoid freeing his slaves. One of his slaves fled to New Hampshire to escape becoming a wedding present. That's G-Dub, baby. That is straight up GW right there. America's first president was wealthy and powerful, and his possessions included false teeth, tricorn hats, and nearly 150 slaves. George Washington owned slaves and relied on their labor, and as Erica Armstrong Dunbar reports in the New York Times, he used legal loopholes to avoid freeing them, even as northern states worked to abolish slavery. Washington inherited his first 10 slaves when he was just 10 years old, Dunbar reports. In the days before Washington, D.C. was the nation's capital, the new president lived in New York and Pennsylvania, states that were gradually abolishing slavery. But Washington wasn't eager to get rid of his own slaves, says Dunbar, even when he moved to Philadelphia. So in 1780, Pennsylvania passed the Gradual Abolition Act, a law that freed people after they turned 28 and that automatically freed any slave who moved to the state and lived there for more than 6 months. This part is really important. Dunbar tells the story of how Washington got around it. So not only did this motherfucker know that it was bad, not only did he know that, like, other people around him knew that it was bad, he literally fucking used a loophole to avoid freeing the enslaved people that he, had enslaved. Fucked vibes for Washington. Washington developed a canny strategy that would protect his property and allow him to avoid public scrutiny. Every 6 months, the president's slaves would travel back to Mount Vernon or would journey with Mrs. Washington outside the boundaries of the state. In essence, the Washingtons reset the clock. The president was secretive when writing to his personal secretary, Tobias Lear, in 1791. I request that these sentiments and this advice may be known to none but yourself and Mrs. Washington. Republicans will call what I'm doing right now the RT. What do students learn about slavery? It depends on where they live. Stop, dude. This is going to fucking black pill me even harder. Every day I learn a new thing about America, and it just, like, breaks my fucking brain. Wait, what the fuck? Why isn't the... Fuck! I learned that Jefferson had slaves from epic rap battles of history. There's basically no concept or morality taught in schools when it comes to American history. It's all strictly liberal institutionalist perspectives. I don't know if you know this, but in public school for the longest time, and maybe still, we were taught that G. Washington's false teeth were wooden instead of a couple of teeth from his slaves. Oh, that's I knew that one. I knew the wooden teeth thing was like fake. Or I knew that they teach the fake wooden teeth story. Wait, I think I got it. I did. Fuck! They're getting better. They're getting better. They're getting better. They're getting better with the paywalls. Oh my fucking God, they're getting better with the paywalls. There it is. When the Texas State Board of Education met in 2010, 145 years after the Civil War ended, they decided to set new social studies standards for teaching about America's deadliest conflict. One of the contentious issues before them, how central was slavery to causing the war? As the board saw it, not very. Dude, come on, dude. Is American slavery compassionate or cruel? More than any other factor, slavery isolated the South from the rest of the United States. While abolitionists cried out to bring the cruel practice to an end, Southern slaveholders defended the only way of life they knew. Look at me, look at my arm. I have plowed and planted, gathered into the barns. No man could head me. I could work as much and eat as much as man when I could get it, and bear the lash as well. And ain't I a woman? I have borne 13 children and seen them most all sold off to slavery. And when I cried out with my mother's grief, none but Jesus heard me. And ain't I a woman? That's Sojourner Truth. So let's, that's one. What the fuck is this? Ew. What is this like thing? It just looks like a bug died on it or something when you were taking the photo. Here's what the Southern slaveholders' perspective was, though. I could not free them, for the laws of the state forbade it. Yet even if they had not forbidden it, the slaves in my possession were in no condition to support themselves. It was simple cruelty to free a mother with dependent children. Observation 2 had satisfied me that the free, okay, I'm not going to read it, were, in general, a worse condition than the slaves. The manumission, setting free of my slaves to remain in the state, was not to be thought of. Should I send them to Liberia? Some of them were in a condition to go, but none of them desired to. If sent, they would be forced to leave wives and children belonging to other masters on nearby plantations and dwell in a strange land. I love both sidesing American slavery as like the compassionate thing. The laws forbade it, man. Anyway, pretty cool stuff. Let's get back to this. The reason why I showed you all this, the reason why I wanted to show you all of this is because that's the reason why videos like this have these insane fucking perspectives. And if you are aware of the reality, if you are aware of the reality of American history and the way that black people were fucked over throughout history, in American history, and how white supremacy was so foundational, then you're shocked when you hear this dumb shit from people. You know what I mean? Where you're like, what the fuck? How are people saying this? Right? That's it.
Who was, a cop who decided he didn't want to do that anymore, that, the training is pretty much specialized for only colored people, especially black people, that if you're around them, they're the most dangerous, so you have to act in certain situations or react in certain situations.
Can you explain Jim Crow laws and its significance? Very important. Okay, dude, we'll get to that. Like, come on.
I think I just really want to emphasize that I really think that there are some officers who are white that don't even believe that they're doing anything that may be racially motivated.
Yeah, Jim, he's in there. He's in the room with you, Sierra. His name is Jim. You were just talking to him.
Because they're simply doing what they were taught to do.
Jimbo.
I come from a police family, and I'd like to add, they do offer diversity trainings in the academy. So either it needs to be more extensive, or maybe we need to take it a step back and fix the selection process, because that process could be inherently racist. Hello, my name is Nia.
More black cops.
And I am black. I'm proud of my race because when I look back historically at what people of my heritage have gone through, and to see where we are now, it's remarkable, and it definitely pushes me to continue to be.
She's right. No, she's not, dude. The entire system of policing is quite literally designed in a way to oppress marginalized communities, okay, and separate them from those who own capital. Black people have been historically oppressed by, or the earliest forms of what the police look like, which they already mentioned, okay, the slave patrols, you know, and that attitude still exists. You're making it seem as though, like, oh, if there's just more black cops, like, it'd be better. Well, there are plenty of fucking black cops out there, and they're still brutal to black people. Because when you are a cop, you have to abide by your modus operandi. The job that is given to you is to be the boot of the state. And the state wants you to oppress black people and poor people, okay? The answer is fundamentally changing policing as an institution.
Be resilient and
like if you get caught up in this like liberal if you get caught up in this liberal attitude, you will constantly find yourself advocating for the wrong things, okay? What do I mean by this? For example, what am I gonna say? I'm like literally okay. My brain is fried right now. Holy shit. Oh, for example, Customs and Border Patrol, right? CBP, according to Americans, is doing a profoundly important job of like owning fucking otherwise law-abiding abuelas that are crossing the fucking border and undergoing incredibly treacherous conditions in an effort to simply find a better life for themselves and future generations, right? And you're like, oh, that if you don't understand that is institutionally, like CBP, Customs and Border Patrol, and ICE especially, okay, especially ICE, is unironically a racist, white supremacist institution that is enacting white nativist border policies that were specifically designed for capitalist reasons that I've described time and time again about creating a two-tiered labor system to ensure that there is a steadily increasing flow of undocumented migrant workers that you can further exploit and use against the documented labor force, as capital owners tend to do. You don't recognize that CBP and ICE is doing that, and they have to be fundamentally changed as an institution from the top all the way to the down, all the way to the fucking bottom. Then you're failing to recognize the gross realities, the horrific conditions that they put people through. And you can get owned immediately. Like CBP is 52% Hispanic. There you go. Customs and Border Patrol is majority Hispanic. Did you guys know that? So what happened? Are they doing something different because they're majority Hispanic? No. Yeah. It doesn't work that way. It's not about the race or the skin color of the person that is doing the oppression. It's what the oppression is and what their job is and what they're there to do. Well, that must mean that they're leaning on Hispanic people, huh? Yeah, notoriously. Okay?
Innovative as they were.
Historically, people formed groups, villages. Some people were hunters, some people were farmers, and then you had
some people were racist.
Whoever was going to protect the group. And over hundreds of years, thousands of years, whatever it is, that's how we wind up having cops, firemen, armies, and navies. Community policing as a theory is a good idea. As a practice, it has some hiccups. When I show up at your house...
Oh my God, bro. This dude is anti-community policing. Jimmy is the worst, dude. Like, community policing is a way for cops to unironically get away with getting additional funds. And homie Homie is still saying, like, even that's not enough, okay? Like, he's saying the compromise is not even enough, okay? That's wild. Like, he won't even concede on that front. That's awesome.
Because you and your husband got into it, and he...
Does he even have one example of a society that had cops? No. But also, remember, I am not a full-blown police abolitionist, and neither are, like, many anarchists that believe in police abolition. They still understand that there is still a necessity for whether it's democratically organized or not. There's still a necessity for some form of regulatory control. It's just about who gets to make those decisions and how those decisions are made. Okay? You still need an institution or a unit or an organization that is designed to maintain the presence of law and order. But the problem is, in the United States of America especially, the presence of police, specifically in underdeveloped communities that have been systematically oppressed, the presence of police does not mean law and order. The presence of police mean lawlessness and disorder, okay? They operate like occupying forces. They operate like a military in fucking, like a military force in Iraq or some shit when they're operating in Chicago or when they're operating in black neighborhoods, okay, in Los Angeles and everywhere else around the country. That's the issue. Of course, there still needs to be some form of community organizing designed around what you would understand as a police force, okay? But currently, in theory, police are supposed to protect and serve the citizens, right? But all they fucking do is protect and serve the interests of capital and those who have capital. Their job, historically and still to this day, is about protecting capital. That's it. That's what they do.
beats you up, and I'm friends with him. So do I want to take him to jail? He's my friend. Or I live in the same neighborhood. And
bro, this dude is actually disgusting. Like, he's using such pleasant words, but what he's saying is so fucking disgusting. He's not even agreeing to the compromise of, like, he's not even agreeing to the fucking compromise of having, like, cops be from the same neighborhoods they police. Like, he thinks, no, they have to be, like, these jackbooted thugs that have no sympathy for those who they are policing.
And I go deal with some guy who's a really bad dude, and he says, I know where you live, I know where your kids are. So to some degree, we have to have a little separation. This is going to get into a hot button topic, but I will tell you that, you know, when I watched the horrible video of George Floyd, I will tell you that I can justify many of the things that happened, but I cannot justify 9 minutes on his neck or back. But what I can also tell you is I, as a policeman...
Wait, what? I'm sorry, what?
But I will tell you that, you know, when I watched the horrible video of George Floyd, I will tell you that I can justify many of the things that happened.
Like what, motherfucker? Like what? What can you justify in that? Because that process was top to bottom. Every part of that was fucked.
But I cannot justify 9 minutes on his...
Oh man, what a good guy, dude.
...neck or back. But what I can also...
Yeah, homie's like, I would have done it for 8 minutes. You know what I mean? 8 minutes and like 59 seconds, but not 9. I would have done it for like 8.5 minutes. That would have been okay, but not 9. Aren't I so nice? Yeah. It's okay. He's basically saying, like, it's all right to fucking go into a call and, like, harass a random dude because the business owner called and said there was a faulty fucking check. No part of that is appropriate or acceptable. What the fuck?
Also tell you is I, as a policeman, and this is my personal opinion only too, the officer who was on him for 9 minutes, he probably spent too much time in the same neighborhood dealing with the same problems over and over again that he became jaded.
Isn't that what being a police officer is?
Yeah, oh, dude, he's a product of his environment, dude. Like, you don't understand, boys. Like, it's because all the people that he was being racist to leading up to this event, That's the reason why he was racist once again and actually acted out in this incredibly racist and violent way. It's never the fault of the policeman himself. It's still, he's just the product of, you know, he personally learned the racism through the experiences of the black people that he dealt with. That's awesome. Yeah. That's great. Thanks, man. Thank you for justifying something. This is the best cop you could get, by the way. This is what happens when you don't even need a degree to kill people. No, it's awesome. This is the best cop that they can find. Great stuff here. Brilliant. This guy is comforting the ACAB stands many people have. Yeah. This is why the whole like good cops exist attitude is just silly. You can be a good person. Okay. You can also join the police force under morally righteous assumptions, especially because that shit's taught in every aspect. That's like learned behavior. The cops are good and they're like diving in front of bullets and diving in front of fucking dicks to stop rapes from happening and shit. That's what Hollywood teaches you. So you can ultimately join the police force thinking that you're going to be a good person and you're going to do right by your community. And there are plenty of people who do, right? I'm sure. And you can even maintain being a good person just, you know, while you're off duty. Not all cops are, right? I would say that the minority probably good. Outside of policing, of course. But you can't be a good person while you're being a cop. As long as there are unjustifiable hierarchies, as long as there are unjustifiable laws that you are upholding with violence and with violent behavior, with the threatening of like taking your freedom away, which is one of the most violent things you could do to someone, you cannot be a good cop. That's why people say there's no such thing as a good cop. Okay? You can be a good person, can't be a good cop. You put the badge on, you put the vest on, you put the gun on your fucking hip, on your holster, you go in and you do a traffic stop. You're not behaving in a manner that is consistent with a good person, okay? That's how it works. And that's precisely why good cops get fired or killed, okay? I must disagree with that statement. When you're a cop, you're bad. No, straight up. Straight the fuck up. Good cops quit. Or they're pushed out. Institutionally speaking, policing is designed to bring these sorts of outcomes. Okay? The culture in the fraternal order of the police is designed to reinforce and make it easier for this brutality to continue. Okay? It's not the policing culture that is responsible. It is the systemic goal that police are there to do that creates that environment and that creates that culture that pushes out the good cops. Okay? That's it. Good cops die because they would rather take bullets than let kids take bullets in school. That just happens to be in Uvalde. Yeah.
Social service job.
And you're assigned to that.
What about other countries where the founding of institutions of policing aren't based around the enforcement of chattel slavery like the United States? All matter of policing historically has been designed, regardless of what country we're speaking about. All matter of policing has historically been designed to enforce the protection of capital, okay? Because even in the North, for example, where chattel slavery wasn't as preserved, cops started off, or the brigade of policing started off around areas of commerce. So in the South, they were slave patrols. In the North, they were designed around areas of commerce, specifically harbors. So the goal of policing in the North, or the goal of like what would be designed into a police force, was still very much designed around protecting capital. Pinkertons, for example, would engage in like espionage, corporate espionage, and also on top of that would break strikes and destroy union organizing and even kill them at certain points. Have you never considered how cops might actually be necessary to part of our society? If cops aren't there, then who's going to beat up the poor people? The same way the top of the hour ad break beats up poor viewers of your stream? Fuck you. At the top of the hour, there's a 6-second ad break. Most of what you're saying is right, but in the ancient past, there were actually policing forces that ran an ad at the top of the hour. Fuck Christ, dude. Come on. I joined the police department because I thought it would be a good way to help, but I would hear fucked shit and was like, well, never mind. I got double killed, dude. Back to back. But yeah, I'm going to run the ad break right now. But if you no longer want to see those ads, don't worry. Fear not. All you need to do is subscribe, which you can do for $5, or you can do for free with a Twitch Prime. By connecting your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account, you get 1 free Prime subscription a month. Okay? Or you can get gifted a sub. Here's the 1-minute ad break now. Like mods exist. Okay, here's a good example. Just like mods exist to protect Hasan, police exist to protect the rich people. That's a great example of my argument, which is that there still needs to be some semblance of order. And without moderation in this community, this chat would not be designed in the way that it is. So no, mods are a perfect example of the necessity of some form of control and some form of policing that is completely appropriate. You would not appreciate this chat if people weren't getting fucking clapped up. This would not be a safe space for marginalized communities. We would not be able to have educational conversations or back and forth, right? At all. So yes, I still understand, and I still do believe, so Hasan is admitting that he's a capitalist institution. Exactly. I still believe that there is a necessity for some form of policing. You don't need to call it police or whatever the fuck, but ultimately it still needs to exist. There still needs to be some form of regulation, some form of control. Okay? So yes, that's a great example. Thank you for bringing that up.
Districts of that community.
But I think you need to move around so that you get to see other things. You don't become that jaded.
The police, no matter what your race is, we have to be integrated all together with the community. And it doesn't have to be community policing, but we all have to understand each other more. I think cultural competency would be very helpful. Like, that's my issue. Whether or not the foundations of the police force was or still was racist, now we can change that, but it starts with cops. Like, at the end of the day, it's the bad police officers that are our issue. Not all police officers, but the bad police officers, we need to vet them out. And the good police officers, we need to, encourage them to be amongst the community.
How do we vet them out?
By making the police unions accountable, because I feel like that demographic of officers, they're actually making things a lot worse for the other officers that are actually
I want to hear it. Like, I would rather have a crusty fucking anarchist in this circumstance advocate for abolition than anything else. Thank you, Psychedelic Gazelle, for the 10 tier 1 gifted subs, allowing 10 people to no longer see the ads, by the way. I just hate that. I hate the liberal attitude of just like, oh, well, there's some bad cops, but then there's a lot of good cops or whatever. Bro, how is that any different than what Republicans say? Everyone's a liberal, dude. Everyone is a fucking liberal. Holy shit, dude. Holy fucking shit. Everyone. From Joe Brandon all the way to Donald Trump. Not all cops are bad. It just depends on what percentage of the police force that you think is bad versus what percentage of the police force you don't think is bad. That's all you're fucking saying. Republicans think all cops are good. Democrats think most cops are good.
To do their job. I think that we need to get some type of real accountability. That I don't think the police should be policing themselves. So when those cops that aren't upholding their oath, they can be properly removed instead of getting all of these passes.
The bad police officers, I hate the term like the bad apple. It's like, no, you're a faulty grenade. Like, you're ruining your whole department reputation. I feel like I was held up to higher standards working at Whole Foods sometimes. I got 3 chances.
Okay, that's true. Like, that is like categorically correct for the record. Yes, you do get held to a significantly higher standard when you are employed in functionally any other job in modern society. Okay? Any other job. That's literally true. If you work a minimum wage job, frying French fries at McDonald's, you get held to a significantly higher standard than a cop. And the training, even for a hairdresser in most states, is more rigorous and comprehensive and longer than the training for a police officer.
Is out. But like Derek had so many
17 reports before George
17
Floyd.
reports. It's like, get him out of there. What are you guys doing?
Do you think police officers, and I genuinely am curious, do you think they should get paid more?
I think police officers should get paid more. I also think police officers
Police officers are the only people who live like who live in fucking Sweden, but in America, okay? They get like social democratic benefits, basically. They get the benefits of like living fundamentally in a social democracy. And then also on top of that, they just have literally like a license to kill, okay? What do you mean they should be paid more? What the fuck are you talking about, dude? They literally get paid so much more, especially in like overtime, and have better health care, better benefits than any other government employee. Get the fuck out of here. They also have the most powerful unions that back every little thing that they do.
should do less. Why do I get sent to all of the mental health cases? Why do I get sent to all of these things? Now, I'll tell you why I get sent to them, is because we'll stop sending the police there, and then something horrible and tragic is going to happen, and they're going to say, why didn't we have a cop there?
Okay, dude. No, you shouldn't, though.
Do you think we need to have different divisions like mental health and just other, or maybe even specific police that are just for the schools? Like, do you think that that would help with a lot of the issues?
No. We do have...
Also, that attitude is wrong as well. I've mentioned it time and time again. We are living in a constant state of fucking paralysis, fear-induced paralysis when it comes to these sorts of situations, okay? First and foremost, Uvalde showed once again what we already fucking knew, which is that like cops aren't necessarily any different than unarmed individuals in where it matters the most, okay? So that's number one. Number two, cops shouldn't be dealing with like mental health trauma and mental health circumstances, because when you're a hammer, everything looks like a fucking nail. Okay? So in a lot of circumstances where they should absolutely not escalate, that's the only thing they know how to do. And they end up escalating in incredibly violent means and end up killing people when they should not have killed someone.
Have specialized police officers in certain things. But if we keep specializing and we get so compartmentalized that I can't go, I'm right across the street from you when you're screaming for help. Yeah. That's not what I do. Got to go find the guy that deals with screaming women or whatever it is. My name is Jimmy, and I am a retired police officer. I'm not going to tell you that there are no racists on the police department.
Damn, even Jimmy admits that there are racists in the police department. That's how you know shit's really fucked up. You know what I mean? That's how you know shit is so fucked up. Even Jimmy admitted it, okay? That's how you know.
I don't think blacks were historically treated fairly.
He said blacks.
Under the law. I think that we have made great progress, great strides. I think we have to continue to get better, but I also think we probably see racism to this day in places where it maybe isn't.
I sometimes wish I was a
Yeah, woke culture's going too far, bro. Woke culture's going way too far, man.
different race.
I'd say not so much these days, but definitely 100% when I was a kid, I wish I was white. I grew up with my white mom. I didn't see my black side of my family after a certain point. I grew up in a small town. I was often the only student of color, definitely the only black kid. And I had this kinky hair. I couldn't figure out how to work with it. And everybody also would call me an Oreo. It was always just being othered. And so being a kid, you know, you just want to fit in. And for me, I wanted to be white. I just wanted to look like my mom, wanted the nice straight hair. And I just wanted to feel like included.
Yeah, I remember in elementary school, I was thinking, no man is ever gonna like me because I freaking look like this. And I just remember hating my hair because as soon as puberty hit, it just blew up, and people kept on asking, do you even need a pillow to sleep at night? I'm like, I can't stand these questions. I can't do this. I'm Jordan, and I am biracial. I think being biracial is definitely living in the in-between, because culturally, yes, I grew up white and
Bro, Logic really set back biracial rights by so much, dude. Every time I hear someone talk about being biracial, immediately in my mind I'm thinking, oh, I'm Bobby biracial. It's just it automatically takes it to a place where it's like, did you know Logic is biracial? Oh, Jesus Christ.
I completely know that. I was raised by my white mother, but then there's also a part where race is perceived, and it's what people put on you and how they respond to you in your everyday life.
He's never coming on now. We gotta have him on. I want him to do an entire verse on me like he did with Fantano.
It's so interesting because I grew up in predominantly non-Black communities. And for some reason, still being the minority at home in the family, as well as in school and in the world, I was always so proud to be Black. I actually really yearned to be around other Black people. So thankfully in college, that was an experience where even though we made up a small community, I was still able to, okay, this is people that look like me.
I was in the military for 6 years, and I was usually the only Jew in my battalion. And I think that isolation produced a sort of pride and understanding of who I am and where I come from. So
I have never wanted to be anything different than what I was, but that's because I really never thought about it. And to your all's point, maybe, I don't know, but maybe people treated you that way because there is this sense.
Dude, come on, Jimmy, don't do it. Don't do it. Oh, this motherfucker. Bro, this is, okay, this is awesome. Dude, sometimes, especially old white people, cannot help themselves, dude. It turns into word vomit with every single fucking stereotypical, out of touch racist shit that you could ever say. Oh, maybe you're looking for the oppression. Everyone turns into fucking, what's the dude from Black White? What was his name? Bruno. Everyone does Black Bruno. Everyone. It's so crazy. It's so crazy. Just boop, zip it, you know? Don't do it. Don't do it. It's I'm going to do it. I'm going to say it. Holy shit. I mean, I did. I forgot Bruno's name for a second. I'm sorry. Okay, Jimmy will not be silenced. No shot.
Oh, but maybe people treated you that way because there is this sense of wanting something that I haven't ever had before. I'd love to have a Lamborghini. You know what I mean? It's different than any other car I've ever had. It's different than what I grew up with.
I think personally for me, I was actually adopted by white parents in very diverse family. I think 6 out of the 8 of us are all adopted, all different races. I kind of have my own story apart from everyone else. And the same for everyone else that was adopted in my family.
Bro, I love that he said, did you get your race car? But literally. Jimmy said, did you get your race car? And I don't mean a card. I mean a race car, the one that goes vroom, vroom.
Have their own story apart from everyone else. And the same for everyone else that was adopted in my family. They have their own story. I always had pride in it, but at the same time, my parents no matter the color of their skin. It's the people who raised me, and they raised me just to not look at it through the lens of race, and that's what I've always done, and I've never wanted to change my race at all. I'm Joshua, and I'm Black. I've never experienced experienced racism. I've experienced stuff from people from my own race. I grew up in a white family by white parents. I was constantly called whitewashed. It upset me, but I didn't let it get to me. Being black in America, to me, is just being an American in America, just like any other person.
White privilege exists.
Bro. It's just, oh my God. Oh man, really said my parents taught me to be colorblind. Jubilee is so wrong for this. Yeah, dude, what the fuck? They didn't have like... I remember you realizing you were racially profiled at the airport with the anti-bomb spray or what it was on stream. You know Jimmy's take on this is going to be wild. Please, as your lawyer, I'm gonna advise you not to say anything. I mean, this is unironically exactly what I was talking about earlier. Remember that like racism is so permanent and so foundational in American societal development that you know, black people don't even recognize when they are sometimes advocating for white supremacist values. And this is just that attitude on steroids, basically. Okay, that's what this is. It's such a complex. Not going to invalidate his experience, but yeah, this is basically the Atlanta episode. It is such a complex situation to cover and talk about, especially as someone who is white. And not only am I white, but also not even like white from America. You know what I mean? I come from a country where there aren't any black people, pretty much. So it is a difficult topic, and the optics of it look bad, but it's exactly the same thing that I mentioned about public education or American schooling and the social conditioning of white supremacy. It's like the most toxic mix of Fine Bro / BuzzFeed trash. Oh my God. I mean, she grew up in a upper middle class, like white neighborhood. He grew up in a white family that adopted him and 6 other people that were all, you know, white and non-white. Like, these are all incredibly unique experiences. There's not like one singular black experience outside of, you know, experiencing white supremacy and being perceived as black. But sometimes your social conditioning is so powerful that it literally overpowers you in a way where you don't even fucking see the racism that you're experiencing. It happens. Why do Americans always talk about race? Bro, substitute it for like talking about the Romani people or something, okay? I don't know why Europeans act like they're above racism. Like, holy shit, dude. Like...
I mean, America was founded by white people, for white people at the time. All of the institutions were designed to benefit white people. So, I mean, of course, white privilege lingers into society today. You can't deny that.
Where I would argue with you just a little bit is I think we throw out the term white privilege far too often for things that aren't necessarily white privilege.
I've got a
Go ahead, Jimmy. Pop off. Jimmy's about to pop the fuck off on this one. You know my man has some words about white privilege. Oh, I didn't experience white privilege. Oh, back in my day, I had to walk to school 500 miles uphill both ways.
Agree with you completely on that one. I think there's generational white privilege for sure, but I think now it's almost used as a reason
Oh no.
to not try as hard.
Yeah, dude.
If we stop doing that, just really like work for it and not use white privilege as an excuse, then we could really.
Okay, bro. Dude, the Thomas Sowell book just dropped, okay? I see him sitting in front of a library with just only Thomas Sowell behind him, okay? Straight up. I'm sorry. This is ridiculous.
Get somewhere as in the black community.
I would respectfully disagree. Like, all of that is true to an extent. Like, I graduated university during the pandemic, the height of it. I went abroad for university. I got 2 degrees. I graduated with honors. Learned to speak 2 languages. I should have been able to get a job right away, right? No. It took me 9 months before I was able to get a job. Had to go completely outside of my field. But then when I looked at all of my white colleagues who were in
Stop being respectful of bullshit takes. I mean, yeah, he has been indoctrinated by his white parents, 100%. Yeah, I already said that. But also, you have to remember that, like, there's, almost 30,000 people in here, and this is a very, very complicated subject. And I have to choose my words carefully because there are some haters in here that'll 100% try to use this against me to be like, oh, look at how racist Hasan is. And especially because I don't want to have my ass eaten in the fucking QRTs by Black Twitter, okay? That's why. Because every time I cover this sort of subject matter, there's hella people that will just like, all it takes is like one fucking Twitter thread to pop off. And then immediately, oh, it's like Hasan is so racist, Hasan is so racist. And obviously I don't care. Like ultimately, whatever the fuck people say, that hasn't changed my attitude. I've been quote unquote canceled. It's not even a real thing a million times over. But and it's not, it hasn't changed my perspective on anything. But no, she said respect. Oh, he was talking about her saying I respectfully disagree. I'm sorry.
Do you mean I just really like work for it?
To an extent. Like I graduated university during the pandemic, the height of it. I went abroad for university. I got 2 degrees. I graduated with honors. Learned to speak 2 languages.
This is why black people don't like you, bro. Why? White defender. This is why black people don't like you, bro. This is why black people don't like you, bro. Your name is Blazin. Also, there's plenty of black people in here. What the fuck are you talking about? Talking about the adopted guy in the video? Oh.
Should have been able to get a job right away, right? No. It took me 9 months before I was able to get a job. Had to go completely outside of my field. But then when I looked at all of my white colleagues who were in my program, all of them were hired immediately.
I need to introduce you to my daughter.
For the record, like, this is anecdotal, right? Like, she's describing her own personal experience. Except it's valid and adequate in this circumstance, especially because her own personal anecdotal experiences correspond to mountains of empirical evidence. So remember that. It's not like, hiring practices and racial discrimination in hiring practices is 100% something that has been adequately studied top to bottom. I keep saying top to bottom. We know it is statistically true, yes.
She's white. Took her a long time.
And I'm not saying that. I'm saying just
she didn't get her job in what her degree.
Yeah, that's right. My white daughter had a hard time getting a job, so fucking owned.
Isn't either.
I respect that, but my point is saying me comparing myself to the white students who were directly in my position, they're successful, I'm not.
This country was founded upon white people coming and then putting in act Jim Crow and other laws saying that if you are not white, you are genetically inferior. You are not even a person. And some of those laws are still, and those systems are still in place today. 2 things can be true. You can have had a very hard time. Privilege is not just limited to white people, but to say white privilege doesn't exist from a historical context, to me, is respectfully absurd.
Something that I learned about recently is the privilege that exists in the medical field, specifically relating to the birthing process in giving epidurals. There was a study that's recently, or was debunked, that said that Black people have a higher tolerance for pain, which then has been falsely used by people who help support births in being hesitant to provide the epidurals for Black women giving birth.
Medical racism, for the record, sounds so fucking insane, but white supremacy is that insane. When you hear about it, you're like, what? It's kind of like the Ben Shapiro take where you're like, what? Highways are racist? Okay, liberal, you're so fucking silly. It's like, no, they are. They literally were designed with a fucking racialized, racially discriminatory purpose, okay? Same with this shit. And not only that, but it's literally taught in medical ethics in school. Medical racism is unironically taught in fucking, in med school. You learn it.
Of women die in childbirth. I don't know the exact statistics. So
3 times.
Black women are 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related cause than white women. Multiple factors contribute to the disparities, such as the variation in quality healthcare, underlying chronic conditions, and structural racism and implicit bias.
More likely Black women are to die.
Thank you. The fact that I will be taken seriously more seriously than a black woman in my place if I should be giving birth at some point. I see that as just an absolute privilege. My name is Bryn, and I just graduated, and I'm currently gaining hours to becoming a licensed therapist. As a therapist in school, we were taught to approach things with what's called cultural humility. Cultural humility is being curious, and instead of trying to have all the answers, working collaboratively with the client to kind of.
It is not privilege, but rather that there are some biological differences that has to be taken into consideration. What? If the entire field of medicine is overwhelmingly dominated by white people, or rather non-black people, okay? And then, no, hold on. Guys, I don't think that person was being a Nazi. I think he was, no. Stop. He wasn't doing race realism. Or maybe he was. I don't know. I'm trying to be as charitable as possible. I think what the chatter was saying is that, actually, yeah, he probably was being a Nazi. What the fuck am I saying? I was gonna say, like, the biological differences that need to be factored into consideration are unironically so marginal that it's fucking bullshit. That's precisely what they're actually literally teaching doctors not to look at when treating black patients. So yeah, I was being too nice. I tried, but I can't. Let me see what else this motherfucker said. This is the first thing he popped off with. There was a case of John Oliver where a wife having complications after birth, but her and her husband were afraid to complain and get labeled as an overreacting black woman, and she ended up dying. Yeah.
Understand where they're coming from.
I have been fetishized for my race.
You know, the standard one, oh, you're pretty for a black girl. I'm like, that's not a compliment. That's so weird to say. And like one of the go-to pickup lines for men, they're like, oh my God, what are you? I'm like, this is not cute. I'm tired of having this conversation. This is lame. Yes, I know I have green eyes, hazel eyes. Like, let's move on.
I think black women in particular are just extremely sexualized and fetishized. Every day I go out, I'm making sure that my outfit is, okay, because I don't want to draw certain attention the way.
Someone in the chat said, this is the one time I wish Jimmy would speak. That would be so funny. If Jimbo came up there and was like, yeah, that's right. Everybody wants some of this hot white piece of ass, and I hate it.
Way I wear my hair, if it's in an afro, if it's in puffs, if it's in braids, I'm going to get treated differently. Yeah, every single day something happens.
So there's a form of positive anti-Semitism where Jews are perceived as like being put together, coming from money, being doctors, lawyers, and women are attracted to those sort of things. And then also too, like, all Jewish men are circumcised.
I'm not gonna make any jokes about this. But like every single Jewish friend of mine would clown on this take that I'm just
circumcised. Some women have that preference. So I've definitely experienced it, but I feel like it's a sort of subtle, trivial thing. Like it never really bothered me, but it's occurred nonetheless.
Yeah, I've had experiences in high school, college. People ask me to stop me, mainly women. Like, oh, are you Egyptian? Or are you black in this or black in that? There's always black in something else. And I'll let them know what I am, and they'd be like, oh, that's exotic or something crazy. My name is Dino, and I am biracial. I don't want people to think that.
I know what Felix Biederman's take on that matter is by heart. He would come in and immediately be like, yeah, I'm always being fetishized for having painful convulsions every time I drink anything that has lactose in it, or like the weird allergies I have. Women are always coming up to me. That is exactly what he would say, verbatim. And probably worse shit too, actually. Way worse shit, but I'm not going to say that. Have you been fetishized? I don't know, because I'm fucking white. I don't think I have. Like, Dude, once you are seen as white, it's a wrap. Like, what do you mean? The fetishization is like ridiculous. It's not the same. That moment when you're being perceived as either Arab or Middle Eastern, Russian, or Latina, the only thing I'm half of these, so the fetishization is crazy. Like, this shit's been going on since I was 12. Like, come on. You've been fetishized just not for your race? I mean, I don't know. Chris Walker fetishize you, but yeah, but like it doesn't mean anything. It's like objectifying a man, right? Like, you motherfuckers try real hard sometimes, okay? And it does piss me off every now and then, but ultimately, like, the objectification I go through is not impactful in the same way that like objectifying women is. Because it doesn't matter. It doesn't like actually impact me in the same way that it does. I'm not expected to be hot. It's like a bonus. Hasan, you are 30, wearing hidden New York and have painted nails? Bro, are you a mobile chatter? Like, what are you talking about? I am currently not wearing hidden New York, nor do I have painted nails. Like, what are you? Homie's on a Motorola Razr right now. He's the internet only picked up. Internet only picked up. He's 8 months behind. White Turks are definitely fetishized by Arabs. I don't know.
That I'm like split between being black or white. I acknowledge that I'm mixed, and
the objectification / fetishization of black men does have actual impacts, though. Absolutely. That's what I'm saying. That's why I was laughing at like a white person or a white person saying like, "Oh, I'm being fetishized."
Biracial, but for the most part, growing up, I was always considered black. I consider myself black. My family did as well. So I don't think we should live in a colorblind society, but I also don't think we should stay stuck and feel like we can't move forward and still thrive and accomplish things because of our skin color and where we live in America.
I just have a question for everyone who stepped forward. I'm just curious how that's like. What's it like?
Exhausting.
It sounds exhausting.
Yeah, I think black women historically have a really interesting relationship with desirability. Culturally, it seems as we're not desired. And then when we are.
What's the line between liking and fetish? Great question. A fetish is when you turn something, when you dehumanize and depersonalize something and turn it into an object of desire. Okay? That's the difference. If you have an obsession, if you see someone not as a human being, but rather simply an object of desire and treat them as an object of desire, that's what you're doing. You're fetishizing them.
We're being fetishized, so it's like, okay, we're usually not desired, but now we are. Am I supposed to lean into this fetishization?
I think just being a woman, we deal with certain things every day, specifically being a black woman, being fetishized. It's interesting because if I, especially in my industry, because I'm there to work and be professional, I'm just super professional and I don't give any attention to that at all, that kind of energy, then I'm an angry black woman. So I think that it's just really...
you can't win.
It does feel like that, so yeah, that you can't win sometimes.
Yeah, and there's also a flip side to it. It's like, for me specifically, I'm light-skinned amongst majority dark-skinned people, and people will deem me or deem other light-skinned people as a certain way, as either weaker or less than, or just like, okay, you're lighter than, so we're going to be so pro-black that we're never going to, consider you as one of us. You're just other.
Well, that touches just on beauty standards in the black community, and that's colorism. Like, I've even been told, you're beautiful, you're not black. It's just like these little things.
Yeah. Or you must be mixed with something,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
My name's Christina, and I'm biracial. I have been fetishized for the color of my skin on both sides. Black men will be really into me because I'm light-skinned, or other men who are not black might be into me because I am that black girl, but maybe I'm not too black, and that, for whatever reason, is appealing. Being deemed as exotic or something other is just very problematic, and that plays into a lot of issues of colorism within the black community at large.
We need reparations for the black community.
I don't think people need like individualized like paychecks. Like I don't think that's gonna like work. But I think pouring funds into communities who could really use it, building jobs there, more education there, like more opportunities would do so much. Like that's how I see it should be.
Anytime that Black communities in the U.S. tried to, pull themselves up by the bootstraps, they were attacked. Like, I think it was in Tulsa, they bombed the city. Black Wall Street, it was completely destroyed. So again, something needs to be done.
When the Civil War ended, there was a representative from Ohio, I can't remember his name, but he was a radical Republican and advocated for the phrase 40 acres and a mule for every emancipated slave. So there was supposed to be reparations, and there never was. And I think especially as a Jewish person, I mean, Jews received reparations for the Holocaust and are still receiving them. And in my mind, there's no amount of money that will ever undo the wrong of the Holocaust. So that you could
Radical Republicans are like a Nazi? No, man. Civil War era Republican. A radical Republican in the Civil War era was basically like a fucking commie. What do you mean? Like a radical abolitionist. The original Republican Party had some relatively Marxist roots. Not only that, but our boy Carl was very fond of the Republican Party. As a matter of fact, the founding charter of the Republican Party literally talked about not only the abolition of chattel slavery in the South, but also the abolition of wage slavery in the North as well. Yeah, Carl Jacobs.
I think the idea in principle of reparations is good. Logistically, I don't know how it would happen.
Color me surprised that Jimmy was anti-reparations, by the way.
I just wanted to say the reason I stayed back was because
You want me to predict what Jimmy's going to say? I think it's inappropriate. Racism is over, or slavery is abolished, and that reparations would be logistically impossible to do and also not good. Not only that, but it's also racist, like affirmative action. And that government giveaways is part of the reason why black people are held back. And then the dude from the white family who grew up on, the texts of Thomas Sowell will nod along and say, yeah, that's true.
I wasn't entirely sure what was meant by reparations, but your example of the Holocaust, I would say that I agree.
Similar reason, when I think of reparations, I think of something similar to a stimulus check. My worry is with the lack of financial literacy, will we actually make strides? So I would love the idea of investing money into programs in underserved communities, something like that. But I do have a fear that even if we did have the money without...
Again, white supremacy impacts black people's opinion of black people. I'm just going to say that for no reason whatsoever, but understand that white supremacy is so powerful that it literally impacts black people's opinion of other black people.
That generational knowledge of how to take care of our finances, that it would just deplete and defeat the purpose.
But even if that were to happen, though, I still think that would still be the right step,
Yeah.
We'll give these people the funds or whatever. We'll give them our promise, and if they float or sink or whatever, that's on them. At least, we as a country took the right step.
I'm all for money going to the community. I am for that because the communities right now are the way they are because of things in the past. But to give out checks to individual people, there's a difference between learning from the past and then still getting caught up in the past.
Damn, dude, he cut out Jimmy. I was wrong. I thought Jimmy would be saying this and he'd be nodding along. Turns out he's the one saying it. God damn.
I mean, if I had a time machine, I could go back in time and be like, hey, you never gave us the 40 acres and a mule. I would be all for that, and I would get on that for the people who were affected and actually went through slavery. But in today's age, like no one's experienced it and gone through it. Yes, the communities are taking hit by that, but so I mean, I've never.
You don't think your ancestors experienced slavery?
I think they do, but I haven't. I've never been in it, so why should I get a check from somebody else who never put it? You should be going way like, way back.
So what?
Look at her face. Oh my God, bro.
I think they do, but I haven't. I've never been in it, so why should I get a check from somebody else who never put it? It should be.
Hold up.
You should be going way back.
So what about the people who are the descendants of the slave owners who are still reaping the financial benefits of your ancestors who slaved in those fields for literally generation after generation? You don't think that during that time, your great-grandfather could have been building
You know what's wrong about this narrative, by the way? White guy here, gonna cut across here and you know, stop a black woman from talking. Here is my take as a white guy. Problem with reparations, or the way reparations are discussed in this country, it's discussed from the framing of righting a historic wrong. Reparations now, as it stands, is not just about that. There is, of course, some like you know, psychic damage that you are repairing, as Dr. Cornell West talks about. Okay, but reparations, as it stands currently, is not about, oh, my bad, here is the fucking money for the slavery thing, oopsie. It's about repairing the material conditions that have been drastically undermined as a consequence of chattel slavery. So it's not even about like righting a historic wrong. It's about righting a wrong that is existing right now in American society. That's a great way to put it. Yes, it's about equalizing the economic head start white people have for 200 years and continue to have to this day, not just a head start. Right? That shit still exists. That's why we say systemic racism still exists. In America, the number one predictor of wealth is how wealthy your parents were. Yeah, your zip code.
business that could be flourishing by now, and you would have a multi-million-dollar franchise as they do off the backs of others. You don't think that deserves some rectification for you in the present time?
To be honest, like, no, because again, it's something that happened in the past. Again, I haven't experienced.
Bro said he's never experienced racism. I don't think you're gonna be able to crack through. He literally said he's colorblind.
I'm doing fine right now. I'm doing fine. And I'm not going to be all upset over somebody else's ancestors who I don't even know who enslaved my ancestors. I don't need it. I have no reason to have it.
So for me personally, I'm not upset about it, but I do feel my grandfather, on his side, they were the first family in the state of Texas to actually file for reparations.
The irony of that sentiment is that quite literally part of the reason why he doesn't know who enslaved his ancestors is because of the systemic racism that he does not recognize. Literally. Like, that's the reason why you don't know, bro. What the fuck? That's crazy. He doesn't even see that. His white parents 100% fucked him over. Can you explain? I mean, what more to explain in this situation? There is a reason why black people, or the concept of black culture, exists, and it is somewhat well-defined and tangible. It's because it is a shared culture that was created through intergenerational trauma and struggle. Because there was no culture to be had when black people were stolen from individual African nations and robbed of their cultural identity and turned into this one massive blob. Okay? That's where black culture comes from. That's the reason why there's a concept of black people or black culture, because it was one that was born out of the struggle of experiencing and overcoming chattel slavery. In America, when you're a white person, you can trace your lineage all the way back to the fucking potato famine, okay? You can trace your lineage all the way back to Poland, all the way back to Greece, all the way back to Turkey. I know what my fucking grandparents and their great-grandparents did, right? I know all of that shit. That's a privilege that I have, that black people do not have. Because at a certain point, there's a cutoff. There's no documentation for where people came from as slaves. There's no Ellis Island. You understand? That's the reason why he doesn't fucking know who enslaved him, who enslaved his great-grandparents. And he's still out here fucking hyping that system up and saying, well, I don't see it. That's crazy. Like when I have family records going back to the mid 1850s, I told my friend about this who's black and said, must be nice law. Many don't have historic family records like that. What you just went over. Exactly.
And for me, I'm succeeding in spite of that. But to this gentleman's point, when the government says, hey, we're gonna do a thing, obviously the government in itself saw the weight in the air of the wrong, just as the German government did. I think if I want to buy 90 gold chains, that's my business. I think it would be unfortunate, but I think that if I'm entitled to something, I think it should be in the same fashion that the people of Jewish descent got it. I think it should be in the same fashion that the people that are Japanese descent got it. So you might think it doesn't affect you, but overall, I think that we have been greatly impacted by slavery, even up to current. I just choose not to focus on it nonstop so it doesn't become something that holds me back. But I definitely think it's something that we're entitled to.
Thank you.
Great, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate your contribution.
That was good.